it was an absolute privilege. It really was. I couldn't have asked for a better service. But after months and years of tribulation, it finally happened. And it just showed me that, it doesn't matter who you are. If God is calling you to something, it will happen regardless of whatever hurdles people try to put in your way.
And you were a teacher, Calvin, before you were called. And when did you receive the call? How long ago was that?
Yeah, so I think actually teaching was the start of my priestly vocation, because I was in industry for a while before that, very superficial lifestyle, making money and all of this, having fun, but it wasn't fulfilling and it wasn't rewarding. And I sensed a call around the time I shifted into teaching, when I was looking for something else and I didn't know what I was looking for. And it took me a long time to work out, actually, I was looking for Christ. And not just was I looking for Christ, I was looking to serve Christ. And after a few years in teaching, I realized that I was doing the teaching, I was doing the pastoral stuff, but I wasn't doing the sacramental administration. And that was what was missing. So I went off to my local priest, joined some vocation groups, and eventually got sent to Oxford to read theology, with a plan of being ordained in the Church of England. But that plan did not go as straightforward as I thought it would.
And for our listeners and viewers who don't know the story, Calvin, just tell us briefly what happened or didn't happen, as the case was.
Yeah, so I've obviously got a little bit of a media profile, as in people know where I stand on political issues because I talk about them in the media. However, so going into this training process as a trainee priest, as an ordinand, people knew what my opinions were and knew that I tried to at least put my faith at the forefront of all of my politics. However, at some point during the end of the process, as I was supposed to be sent off into a parish as a curate or an assistant priest, to kind of learn the ropes on the job, it became clear that the bishops were not happy to send me back to London and weren't happy to ordain me, even after confirming my calling and saying that the church also saw that I was called to ministry. For some reason, and they were never very explicit, they didn't want to send me back to London. And so I put in a subject access request and found out that actually all along, from before they even sent me to Oxford, this whole time, the bishops have been talking behind my back about how conservative I was in my theology and in my politics, and how problematic that might be. There were emails from bishops, the Bishop of Edmonton, for example, said, Calvin does not believe this country is institutionally racist, therefore we should keep an eye on his ordination process, i.e. he's not one of us politically, we shouldn't really ordain him. I think it's terrible that, they're letting politics get in the way. Not once did they say, I didn't have enough faith. Not once did they say I'd be a poor servant of Christ. And not once did they say I'm a heretic or my theology is poor. It was always my politics. But to my face, they would smile and say, oh, no, your politics is fine. We're a diverse and inclusive church. But behind my back in the email chains, it was very clear that they did not want a person like me amongst their midst.
And for those of us of faith from the Anglican community, it is quite shocking to hear that, Calvin. And I'm sure you have received a lot of correspondence from very concerned members of the Anglican Church.
Yeah, absolutely. And the biggest eye-opener for me has been that, I've talked a lot about this, not because I'm bitter and resentful, or not because I want an apology from the church, but just because I need to expose what's going on. And as I have done that, lots and lots of people from within the Anglican Church have reached out to say things like, this has happened to them, but they're not in a position, they don't have a platform to tell people about it. And, or if they speak up about it, I've had priests get in touch, vicars get in touch and say, we can't say anything because if we do, our stipend will be removed, we'll be starved out. I've had ordinands get in touch and say, we're keeping our head down, they're shoving this black theology and queer theology down our throats, but we have to just get on with it. Otherwise, we won't make it through. And it's been so eye-opening because so many people across the board have reached out, but not just clergy, people, congregants, people in the pews have reached out to say, my vicar is more likely to preach about climate change than he is about Jesus Christ. It's a sorry state of affairs. What can we do? It feels to me like the Church of England has gone astray. But I'm here to say that it's okay, because as much as the church is leaving people behind, it is not the only expression of church, and Christ's church will win out in the end. And I've joined a community within the Anglican Communion called GAFCON, which is a global movement of people that want to affirm Orthodox Anglicanism. I've been ordained within the Free Church of England. In this country, there's the Free Church of England, there's AME, there's ACE. There are a few expressions within GAFCON. And in North America, it's doing very well in the ACNA and the Reformed Episcopal Church. So there are roots. If people do want to stick to Orthodox Anglicanism, some people don't want to go to Rome, some people don't want to go to non-denominational. There are ways of remaining Anglican and remaining faithful outside of the established church.
Well, thank you for that, Calvin. But you also wanted to talk to us today about education with your former background as a teacher. Tell us what you wanted to say.
Absolutely. It's a worrying time, education. We have a conservative government, and I use that in inverted commas, because under this government, we've seen relationship and sexual education be pushed through. And we've always had sex ed in our schools, but when I was a teacher, when I first started teaching, sex ed was something that happened in secondary schools. And I understood the reason behind it, although I wasn't fully in favor of it, because I think these are conversations that parents should be having with their children. Schools should be teaching 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. They should be teaching knowledge, and parents should pass on the other information, whether it's British values, Christian values, or relationship and sexual health and ethics and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, sex ed has been a thing for a while, but now the Conservative government has pushed through relationship and sexual education, which actually is a Trojan horse, because what it's done is it's taken sex ed from secondary school, pushed it down to primary school, and now we have kids as young as 5 years old being taught about masturbation. Now, I think that's entirely inappropriate. The reason behind it was they said, we need to teach kids about different types of families, such as homosexual families, or we need to teach them about different kinds of people, such as transsexual people. And you can see there is an argument to be had there, but for it to be pushed down into primary is entirely age inappropriate. We're breaking down this idea of a normative family as if having one father, one mother, and children is a bad thing. Now, it's not to say that there aren't other lifestyles and other ways of being family, but to suggest that a two-parent family of a mother and a father is a negative is totally disingenuous and dishonest and actually quite wicked. So we need to fight against that. But so the government's pushed forward RSE. It's also pushed forward this new schools bill, which hasn't fully gone through yet, so there's still time to fight it. But this bill will cancel out home education. So for people that think, actually, our schools have gone too woke, this RSE stuff is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much going on in schools. If parents knew what their kids were being taught. But homeschooling is being cancelled out because the government wants you to take your kids to a school. And I think there are good reasons behind that. But at the same time, again, it's a parent's responsibility to educate children. Schools are supplementary. Schools are helpful. But the state should not replace the parent. So we've got RSE, we've got homeschooling being cancelled, and at the same time, free schools being cancelled, which was a fantastic Conservative policy. And the idea that parents and teachers can get together in an area where a school is needed and create one with their own ideology, with their own values, with their own set of curricula, and say, look, this is what we think needs to be taught. Now that's been taken away, and MATs are being encouraged, multi-academy trusts, big business. If you've already got 50 schools, you're great. You can set up another one just the same. More schools is usually a good thing, but I think parental choice is key. And if a group of Christians want to set up a school, fantastic. If a group of teachers want to set up a school, well, that should also be good and encouraged. I don't see why they're clamping down on these 3 areas. It's all very anti-conservative and very worrying.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.